We'll call the August 18th, 2022 meeting of the Sherburne County EDA to order. I'd be looking for an approval of the agenda for today. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? We'll move approval of the June 16th County EDA meeting minutes. It seems like such a long time ago since we were here, but hopefully you had a chance to read them. Any changes, corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval. You guys are slow today. All right, we have a motion. We have a second.
I mean, I'm the secretary. Okay.
Would you?
I'll approve it.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed. All right, item number 4, introduction of Jessica Barthel.
I would like to introduce our new economic development coordinator,
Excited.
Jessica. She'll talk here in a minute, a little bit of her background on one of the first projects she's working on. But can we do a roll call, because she probably doesn't know everybody at this point.
Absolutely. All right, let's start this way and go around.
Zach Thompson, Sherburne County Planning and Zoning.
Linda Toshik, Sherburne County Planning and Zoning Administrator.
Laura Kangas with our
Felix Schmazing, County Board.
Greta Stark Crocker, Central Minnesota Executive, Central Minnesota Community Foundation.
Andy Voller with American Heritage.
Jared Johnson, Cargill and Big Lake.
Ken Drew Construction.
Good to meet you.
With that, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. I do have a little note sheet prepared, otherwise I run the risk of completely drawing a blank. No, I'm very excited to be brought on as the Sherburne County Economic Development Coordinator. I worked for Guardian Angels for actually 2 different stints of employment over a combined total of over 10 years. The last 5.5 years I worked as the manager of Pullman Place Cooperative, which is a senior housing co-op over back by the train station in Elk River. One thing I think that I'm probably most proud of working there was working with state and local agencies to try to define cooperative housing in terms of property tax and state tax that kind of get lumped into multifamily housing and certain business sectors when it comes to tax. So I did work with multiple agencies across the state to advocate on their behalf, and that was work that I was pretty passionate about. So current things that I'm working on here at the county, I'll get to the SEDS report, but just really working on trying to get connected with professionals that I need to know. I met with some of the people here at this table, and people at the state, county, and city and township levels, connecting with agencies that are part of the economic growth, like the chambers, financial institution, the Initiative Foundation, Career Force, and other economic development partnerships. And then attending chamber events to welcome new businesses and new people in the community, business networking events, ribbon cuttings, all that fun stuff. I've kind of been all over the place, and it's been a blast. But project-wise, we've been working hard on that Region 7W SEDS report. The SEDS report is the comprehensive economic development strategy for Region 7W, Benton, Sherburne, Stearns, and Wright counties. So it's a collaborative effort. We've been working with people across all sectors to complete this. Regions have to update their SEDS every 5 years to qualify for EDA assistance under Public Works and Economic Adjustment Assistance programs. So it's a pretty important document. And really, Dan handed that to me on my first day and said, we need to do the first 22 pages. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't really know what it was. And then once I realized it was, I was a little more, I don't know if nervous would be, but it is definitely significant. So that's been taking up a lot of my time, which is good. I've been enjoying diving in and doing the research and putting it together. So
She's being a little modest right now. When we sent it into the state, what did the state say? You can go ahead and tell them.
I sent it to Luke to look at it, and he said that he's never seen anybody single-handedly compile a report like that, and that I should come work for them, so. And I didn't even tell you, he doubled down on that yesterday, so. No, in all fairness, it's been a ton of fun,
From
so.
Luke Grimer, that's pretty good.
Hopefully he's kidding. Stay in your lane, Luke.
But that is on track to be submitted. It's supposed to be submitted by the end of the year. I'd love to see it submitted before Christmas. I think that'd be a great, just kind of Christmas present to the region to have that off of all of our dockets. But following the SEDS report, I will, I'm sure, be working much closely with most of you to update the Economic Development Strategic Plan for Sherburne County. And I look forward to that. When I was interviewing for my job, actually, I was on the website and looking and noticed that kind of went through 2020, and I thought, I bet that'll become a project that I'll be working on. So it will be, and I'm looking forward to working with you guys on that. That's all I have.
Great, well, thank you. So that was the, SEDS process update all in one?
Yeah.
Great,
I
love your
can-
efficiency.
Yep.
Do you want to throw your input? I know you were at the meeting. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I was at the meeting, a lot of ideas, you know, I mean, most of you have been to these type of things before, where they break out the boards and the post-it notes and everything else, and, so yeah, there's, the ideas were just all over the board. How much of them are, actionable, I'm not sure, but I don't think that's what the meeting was about. It was more about just getting things out there and written down, and then I think you guys go through and kind of boil it down, so, yeah, it was an interesting process. No, Dan, I'm not dropping the clutch on it.
Interesting's fine.
All right, well, we can move on to item 5 with the comprehensive plan update from Miss Lynn.
Well, and Zach and I are gonna tag team on this, and I'm gonna let Zach kind of take the lead, and I'll provide color commentary. And so I'll let Zach, this is Zach, our Assistant Planning and Zoning Administrator.
Good morning, everybody. I'm sure Mark Schneider would be excited to be here and present this to you, but he's on a boat Alaska fishing for 2 weeks. I'm not jealous at all. So, yeah, let's get started. So we just wanted to update you on the comprehensive land use plan and give you an introduction. Some of you may have already seen this presentation, but for some of you it'll be new. So let's meet the team. So we went through a process of interviewing consultants. We had 6 bids. We interviewed 4 different consulting firms. Unanimously, we chose HKGI as the team leader and facilitator. They will be working on community engagement and plan production. As subcontractors, HKGI works with EOR, which will work on the natural resources and GIS mapping, and then Streetlight, which is kind of the big data. We can get into that a little bit. I know Commissioner Dolan is familiar with Streetlight as well. And what that is trends analysis that's taken from data points that's derived from apps on your cell phone. So when you use your cell phone, whether you know it or not, Google Maps, Weather Channel, whatever it may be, there's data points that are taken. And Streetlight purchases those data points and uses it for trends analysis. We can see how transportation's impacted, are people living and working close to home, and things like that. So we're really excited to use that data. The purpose of the plan is a guiding document that serves as a basis for planning and land use decisions, capital investments, regulations, regulations, policy, and initiatives to be considered and implemented by the county. So it was last updated in 2011, and that was an internal update. The last time that we hired a consultant to create or work on the comprehensive land use plan was in 1994. We're really excited to bring somebody in. The purpose of the plan is to encourage development in appropriate areas, protect and preserve the county's natural resources, support our efforts to retain, expand, and attract new businesses to the county, and incorporate and recognize local planning efforts by our townships and cities. So here's the timeline of the process. We started back in May, hoping to finish in April of 2023. Currently, we're in the vision and goal setting process. As far as community engagement goes, we are still informing and listening.
And we have put together a questionnaire that we're working on right now with the consultant. I think it looks like it'll be a very good questionnaire that'll garner a lot of information from residents, and it'll be put on our website, and people can provide us with their comments, and then that information will be tabulated. I think that'll go online before the end of the month.
All right, so here's some things we need to consider. So existing and past planning efforts, and we'll get into that on the next slide here. Changes to our landscape. So what kind of development has occurred? What infrastructure exists? What are our strengths, opportunities, and issues? Our changing demographics, evolving economies and changing markets, and then emerging trends. So interestingly enough, we are very fortunate to be able to use existing and past studies that have been created. HKGI, within the last couple of years, updated Stearns County and Benton County's comprehensive land use plan. So we have that local knowledge already there. Now, we're different from those counties, but to have that proximity is beneficial. In 2018, the Sherburne County Public Works Department updated their transportation plan. We're currently working on the Central Mississippi River Regional Planning Partnership. The comprehensive housing needs analysis for Sherwin County was completed in 2020. And then currently HKGI is also working with our Public Works Department in the Parks area, updating the Parks plan. So this is really interesting, and out of all of the counties, it's really interesting. Sherburne County is projected to grow in the next 20 years. We're one of the only, we're one of very few counties outside of the 7-county metro area that is projected to grow this much. And by 2040, I believe we're have an increase of about 25,000 folks in Sherburne County. So people want to be here. People want to move to Sherburne County. So that's positive to see. So as most of you probably know, most of our residential development in Sherburne County has occurred on the eastern portion of our property. And this map demonstrates that. So this map shows platted subdivisions. And it's interesting to actually see it on a map. You know, we visualize that, think about it. You know, Baldwin, Livonia, Elk River, Orac, Big Lake are the areas of development. But to see it actually put on a map is really interesting. Most of the land west of Sherburne County that was developed was subdivided prior to the 1994 ordinance. Is that correct, Lynn?
On which side of the county?
On the western side of the county.
On the western side of the county, yes, and then the restrictions came in and it became more restrictive. The most you can do up in that agricultural area, which is up in that St. Cloud neck of the woods, is a 3-lot subdivision. We don't do multi lots, except around, we just started a few years ago where if you're within 1,000 feet of a lake, certain kinds of lakes will allow some higher densities there. But that's pretty limited as far as where we will allow that type of thing. So like Zach said, most of our development we've seen is on the eastern part of the county. The other caveat that we have up in the western portion of the county is in order to plat, even the 3-lot plat, you have to be 75% wooded with tree canopy, and that's caused some issues. And what we want to look at is, do we want to start to allow maybe in certain areas some of the farmers to have the opportunity to develop some of that land, or do we want to stick with that 75% wooded?
And we also think this is going to be a major discussion topic through the development of our comprehensive land use plan, and that's large lot development versus smaller lots. So historically, Sherburne County has allowed residential development at a minimum of 2.5 acres. But you know, there's some things we need to consider. You know, long-term costs of infrastructure, so roads, utilities, and so forth. And there is some data that shows there's a stronger demand and market for smaller lots compared to the traditional large lot developments. Now that changes where you're at in our county as well. That may be true in some of the more urbanized areas of our county, but you get out to Palmer Township and that may not be true. So it's really interesting the different dynamics we have going on in Sherburne County.
And you also see almost everybody, when they have a large lot, everybody wants a pole building. They always have lots of stuff to put in there. And so I think there still is that demand for some larger lots, and trying to find a balance to meet the needs of what the residents want is what we're going to be looking at.
Okay, so here's some markets and trends related to housing. There's greater pressure, of course, being put on our urban fringe. Apartment demand has continued to rise. The idea of live and work is not new. So work where you live, but the last 2 years have reminded us of the potential. As millennials and Zoomers now move to the suburbs, they're bringing preferences for urban sense of place. So walk or bike to the coffee shop, be able to go out to eat close to home, things like that. So looking for those amenities and convenience. Okay, so here's some business themes that we've noticed. So Sherburne County continues to have a strong economy despite the effects of COVID-19. We have a diverse mix of strengths, including manufacturing, healthcare, and construction. Retailers are rethinking stores as small format for experience and supplement large stores. Delivery is on the rise. Amazon and UPS trucks everywhere. And warehousing is one area that thrived during the pandemic and is likely to remain strong as the shift to e-commerce continues. So here's some other themes that we're starting to pick up on is that people want access to nature. One of the things that we also think is going to be very interesting discussion is accessory dwelling units. If anyone is not familiar with an accessory dwelling unit, that's a smaller structure that's located on a lot that already has a principal dwelling. They've been referred to as granny pods and other things like that. So agritourism is a potential for Sherburne County. You know, as a larger 10-acre lot where there's a maybe a family farm, hobby farm, outdoor recreation, rural businesses, sustainability and resiliency, technology, broadband, electric vehicle charging stations, and of course with COVID the last couple of years, telecommuting.
Do we have any electric vehicle charging stations in the county? Anyone know?
City of Elk River has one, and one's coming to Becker. We're just approved a grant from the Initiative Foundation to put one in Becker.
Okay, so here's some discussion points, and we can have a nice discussion on this, and I'll write everything down and try to capture everything. So what types of new market or trends should the county address as part of this update?
Yeah, I couldn't even get a motion this morning, so.
Well, and you can always email us, or you may want to participate once that survey goes out. Provide us with comments on that. But you know, we're looking for any assistance we can get, any thoughts people want to contribute.
Andy, can you kind of talk about what we were talking about before the meeting on the housing market? It doesn't necessarily directly relate to the comp plan, but I think it's important for everyone to know.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the numbers this morning. So the stats as of this morning, there are currently 230 active listings in Sherburne County. 154 of the active listings were built in 2021 or prior. That's a number that I was telling them I focus on, because a lot of times you'll see a lot of these listings in the residential areas where they'll have a house on there, but that house is not built. And then they'll sit on the market for, you know, up to a year, because it's the idea that you could build this lot on there. So what I focus more on is the 2021 and prior builds. So 154 built homes. There are currently 93 homes that are pending. So they have an agreed upon purchase agreement. So if you think about it in that aspect, we have 154 homes available that are on the market, ready to be lived in, 93 pending. So we have about a month and a half of inventory out there. 4 to 6 months is considered a balanced. So we're still in the seller's market. And there were 164 homes closed in July of 2022 in Sherburne County. Average sale price per square foot was $185. The median price was $173. So we're still seeing we're still seeing a strong market. One of the numbers that I shared with Dan in a report that we get was, I think Sherburne County was still at little over 100% sale price to original list price. And that was a price last year that we were all the way up to 104.7%. You know, meaning that the average property was selling for 4.7% over the asking price. I have noticed that coming down quite a bit. Personally speaking, I know the last 2 homes that I put on the market were gone within 7 days, full price offers. So, and that was a month ago. There's still a lot of demand out there.
And what we're seeing in the townships is developers don't wanna build roads anymore. They only wanna pick off the lots that they don't have to put the roads in for. We're not seeing as larger plats because they're not building roads, so we don't have a whole lot of lots out there for them to build on. So that's where what we're seeing out in the townships. I'm not sure what the cities are seeing, but that's kind of been the trend in the townships as of late.
Hannah, do you want to speak to anything on regards to development of Big Lake, housing side?
Well, we are exhausted about single family, buildable lots, basically, I would say under 20 for sure. So we're going from last year issuing around 90 some single family permits, and this year we're at 14. So drastic difference. However, we have a lot of development in the queue as well. So about 400 units are in the queue in order to get approvals. So.
Including multifamily, or that'd be just single family?
Let's see, we would have one multifamily project, 74 unit senior affordable project. That is just starting to get approvals. But the rest will be single family. Detached townhomes is the trend. So that's just about the only thing coming through. 5-foot setbacks. Kind of been interesting discussion at the council level regarding that too. So it's single family, but very, looks like multifamily.
Josh, Elk River trends?
Well, we had that pre-COVID housing study. We've met all the goals in that. Granted, the demand for home has changed since COVID. We're working from home, so maybe we're due for another one. But it's been slow in the single family home. We're starting to slow down.
I guess I would say, I think with COVID now, there's more of a demand, of course, on broadband. So I think that makes it a little easier for us when we're doing some of these fiber projects. In the past, maybe our take rate wasn't as high because a lot of people were like, they wanted to stream or whatever, but now it's more important to have that reliability with them working from home. So I think there's more of a trend, people wanting to move out of the metro that were used to having those type of services, and then they move to a rural place like where I live, and crap, I can't even get internet, they can't even get it. And so I think that's changed a lot. I think people, when they look at moving to some of these rural areas, that's now checking the box just as high up as, their electricity or whatever. So I think that's changed. And then I noticed too, just where I live, a house goes on the market and it's gone and it's just overpriced. And I think, having now that children wanting to move back into the area, they can't find affordable housing. And so I think that really, you notice, and it is, even without a baby boom, not having kids at home anymore, my husband and I look at downsizing. But where would we go? There's nothing out there to even go to. So,
and that's a common theme we've heard, is that people want to downsize when you get to that stage in life, but you want to stay where you're at.
Correct.
You don't want to move to the cities. You want to stay rural, and there are very few options, if any, for that right now in our rural area. So.
Yep, for sure.
Are developers reaching out to you when they talk about new plats to see if there's fiber in the area?
Not so much here. I have had more towards Big Lake. I've had a couple because they're saying, and then up towards Sartell, Sauk Rapids, because CenturyLink, and Charter has a franchise agreement. They have to do that in most of those areas, but they're not bringing fiber. And so I do get, developers asking how much would it cost to bring in fiber. And I have worked with a couple to do that. So, but again, it's more higher scale developments, where you're probably looking at, 90% are all professional people, and the income level, most of these houses are 750 plus. Those are the developers that are they have to attract those people, because what happens, same thing, these people are moving to these super nice subdivisions, and they're lucky if they're getting 10 or 25 meg, and that's not cutting it, for what they need. And there's so many smart houses going in, and that have so much stuff, connected, that they rely on the internet for reliability. And like I said, you can get Charter Spectrum, in a lot of those areas, but is the reliability there? Not always, just depending on the capacity. So yeah, we do get requests for that more now.
Yeah. I have a question for Laura. Are you guys actively engaged in the residential market then now?
prior.
Correct, yep, yep, well, Dan knows. When I started, yeah, but I think that's, now there's a lot more emphasis on residential. We just don't see the churn rate, and that kind of stuff. And people in the past honestly really weren't willing to pay $85 a month for a fiber internet plan, where now that's not a problem. They're willing to, put the cash. And I think that's what I think is different, and even the older generation, nobody streamed, nobody did any of that stuff. And now, even if they aren't working from home, at least you're getting that older generation gap saying, okay, I'll sign up for fiber, where in the past they would just look at me like, no, I'm not streaming. What is that even, so I think I see that a lot. They're more willing to pay for it.
It'll be interesting to see what, if any, impact Starlink or satellite-driven internet will have. I know it's not very reliable, thunderstorms or cloud cover, things like that.
But I think for people, I had one the other day that I went to, they have a really long driveway, they're way back in the, to get to their house is gonna cost a lot of money. And honestly, I was the first one to say, you should probably look at Starlink. Not maybe satellite through something else, but, even hotspots. I mean, Harvick does a lot of towers. We've been upgrading tons of towers. And, before we used to just have smaller gig connections, and now we're getting requests for big pipes to come in because people are relying more on their hotspots and using their phones and things, because they have to supplement what they're getting from maybe their local carrier that doesn't have fiber. And so they need to have, another plan. And so I think the wireless, is getting a lot more business because it is more reliable, because we do have that fiber base.
Okay, good. Well, I think housing is definitely something that needs to be a big focus of the plan. From my intel and study, which I get information almost daily, the truth of the matter is, housing has just not kept up with demand since 2008, okay? You couldn't do a development after 2008 because nobody would give you money to do one. And so there's a huge backlog. And so it's probably the closest thing in the open market to a true supply and demand matrix, okay? There's other things out there with new energy and stuff like that are kind of skewed with government intervention and this and that. But this is a true, people need places to live. We don't have places to put them. And it's being talked about in the cities and all over the place. So I think that demand, even if the overall economy does, shall we say, correct, obviously housing will take a little bit of a hit, but I think it'll come back very quickly and very strong because that true demand, that market matrix is still there. So I think that's a component that has to be looked at very heavy, because I think that's going to be a strong market until probably for about 12 years, what I'm hearing. And there again, that doesn't take into account what may happen with the world economy, but before the industry could even catch up with the demand. So kind of looking forward that way, and then into the different housing models that are being proposed by developers with the smaller lots. That's kind of a paradigm shift on the county level. So that might take some discussion on what could be done out there, where we're used to the 2.5 acres and life is easy. But of course, I'm getting old. But I still remember when the county did allow half-acre subdivisions, and I still own property in one of them, and it's worked flawlessly. So that may be something that comes full circle back around.
If I can just add to that a little bit, first of all, I think the tree thing really has to be looked at, because we have not really followed it in a lot of ways. There's been a lot of places where we've broken that. And as we think about this, I agree completely that we need to stop thinking city lot, 2.5 acres, 5 acres, large acreage. We have to start to figure what is an efficient use of property that gives people what they want. If they want to shop in a house, what's that take? So I think that's, as we review this, I think we really got to try to break out of some of the old norms of thinking that how we're gonna do this, and I think that'll be helpful. So this is gonna be a big deal, this plan.
Absolutely. And that vision setting survey that Lynn was referring to, I really like the format, how HKGI put it together. It was, I value 2.5 acre lots or larger. On the other side of the spectrum is, I want smaller lots, but you have the option to pick anywhere in between. And so if we get a lot of answers that are value both, we can go, okay, we need to dig into this further, ask more questions related to this to find out what people are really getting at here. So that'll be really exciting to see what comes from that survey, and that should be ready in the next month or so, I
I
believe.
believe so, yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you know, sometimes the true knowledge of the market gets left out as we try to do it at board levels and things like this, but, your developers and your builders will tell you what the market is asking for and what the demand is out there. And so, the open market will answer a lot of these questions if we open our ears and listen instead of trying to reverse engineer that, well, we'll tell you what the market's gonna do. They already know the answers. They're just looking to get it done. So a lot of it is just getting out of their way to be able to provide the product that the consumers are already asking for. Right? Anything else?
There's more slides.
Okay.
Oh,
I've got more.
I mean to cut you off.
What else should we know? We gotta pump our project website here too after. Doesn't have to be related to markets, themes, housing.
We had a pretty good discussion there about a lot of different things.
And
I
here,
thought you guys already knew everything. Every time I go to your office.
and so here's our project website. This is where we're gonna do information sharing, updates, studies, have community engagement, stakeholder engagements, where our surveys will be. It's got the QR code you can take out your phone and put your camera on it. It'll zoom you to the website. And so please visit it. Please pass the word out. And thanks for having us here.
All right, thanks, Lynn. Thanks, Zach. Are there any other questions while they're here? Well, that will bring us to, item 6. Dan?
Several years ago, the county board passed a resolution allowing the property assessed clean energy program in Sherburne County, and we've utilized it right away, but it's been 6 years since Pete's been here and it kind of gets forgotten. So I invited him to present today, so it's all fresh in our minds again. I think we've had 3 projects here in Sherburne, but he'll explain what that means. And Pete, if you want, you need to sit at the table or go up to the podium, whatever you're more comfortable with.
You tell me. I'm good either way. Okay, up here. Mouse up here.
I'll get you the clip.
Thanks. I'm Pete Klein, Vice President of Finance for the St. Paul Port Authority, and here to talk about PACE, Property Assessed Clean Energy. PACE is a way to finance energy-related projects, both renewable and efficiency projects. And we have accomplished a few in Sherburne County. And first, I'll just go through some of the basics of PACE. I think the first set of slides, I did a joint presentation with a national PACE lender. So some of these slides are borrowed from them, and then the latter slides are examples of projects that we've done. One question that I always get asked is, why is the St. Paul Port Authority doing PACE throughout the state? And back in the last big recession, there was stimulus funds, and each state got stimulus funds for energy-related projects. And I went to the legislature and asked for $32 million. I received $5 million to create a revolving loan fund. That revolving loan fund worked out extremely well. The Department of Commerce recognized that a lot more money should have been funded into that program. And then we were the sponge that soaked up the other funds that fell by the wayside. So we received ultimately about $15 million. Those funds have revolved many times over the 10 years or so. And because of that success, Commerce asked me to try to figure out how to get PACE going in Minnesota. So I wasn't a big believer, but take a hard run at it, and it turns out it's got some really good niches that it works well with. All right. All right, so it is simply financing. Get calls from property owners all the time wondering if it's a grant, if it's some subsidy. It's simply financing. It's a alternative form of financing that has a long-term fixed rate, which is hard to find in the private sector market. It is for commercial property owners in Minnesota. Other states have residential, but in Minnesota we're exclusively commercial industrial properties, no residential. Multifamily we can do though. Oh, it's for retrofits and new construction. We've done quite a few new construction projects lately, and you can see that this is one of the national PACE lenders slides because they're looking for big projects, but we're actually able to accomplish much smaller projects. And they have seismic retrofits, which we don't need in Minnesota. But there are states that have that, and other states have hurricane preparedness and other natural disaster factors that they allow PACE to finance. But just thinking of it as, in fact, in Minnesota, we don't have water conservation. We do have a bill in front of the legislature that will allow for water conservation. I think we're probably the only state that has a PACE program that doesn't have water, but the rest of those we do finance those types of projects. So the property types, office, industrial, multifamily, hotels. We've done more than closing in on a dozen hotels everywhere from Austin to International Falls. So this is why PACE is working for these particularly new construction projects. So a developer, if a senior debt requires a 65% loan to value, they'll fund up to 65%. A 35% equity stake is a tough call for most developers. PACE can come in 15, 20%. In this example, it's 20%. And reduce the equity stake that the developer needs. And it's a much more cost-effective form of financing than mezzanine debt or equity itself. So that's the primary reason why PACE is coming in on these new construction. PACE also works extremely well with solar, and it is a fabulous way to finance solar projects. And the reason for that is that the first payment's May 15th of the following year. So you can file your taxes, get the 30% investment tax credit, depreciate the entire system, essentially getting half the cost of the system back before you need to make your first payment. Truly makes it a positive cash flow investment. All right, so these start my slides. And I refer to Minnesota as the rule of 20s. We can do finance up to 20 years, 20% of the assessed or appraised value, and anything we finance needs to show less than a 20-year payback. That summarizes about 95% of the statute. our tagline is 100% financing, so no upfront costs and immediate positive cash flow. So we want to structure the repayment so that it is a positive cash flow investment to the property owner. So when we finance a project with our revolving loan fund, we don't charge interest during the build out of the project. And with PACE, the delayed payment makes it, in most situations, that the project has been completed before payments start. And so you're seeing that energy savings, producing that energy before you need to start making payments. So I talked about solar. This is up on the Iron Range. And solar with the 30% investment tax credit and depreciation deduction is you're crazy to not be going forward with solar right now if you have a site that's conducive to solar and you have the tax appetite to use the tax benefits. So this one was Green Gate. It's a boutique housing, or not housing, hospitality venue. And what I see in these building owners, there's two, well, the farmers are doing it because it is just a positive cash flow investment. Small businesses like this individual are doing it because it's a no-cost marketing investment. They don't have to come up with any funds, immediate positive cash flow, and they want to advertise that they're a green organization. Potential hurdles, we are limited to 20% of the assessed or appraised value, and we do require any mortgage holder to sign off on the PACE financing. That's not in statute, but when Commerce asked me to take it on, I said that's the only way we're going to do it. So we've done a lot. We've actually done over 350, well, yeah, 250 projects under $250,000. Nobody else in the country is able to do that. Most of those are solar related, but a lot of them are just boilers, lighting, HVAC units on smaller properties. So this one shows we've got done about 356. It's a little old. We're closing in on 400 projects, $250 million of projects. And we currently have joint powers agreements with 67 of the 87 counties, looking to add 2 more within a month. And it is progressing rapidly in Minnesota. So that you can go on our website. This is an interactive map. You can click on any one of those red dots and it'll tell you what the project is and the dollar amount, where it is.
Can you talk a little bit about the payback that it's added to the property taxes?
Sure. It is placed on the property taxes and it's paid to the county twice a year. And then the county remits those funds to us, and then we will remit those to the ultimate lender, or if we're the lender, we replenish our revolving loan fund and make new loans. So it can be, our fund is limited to 10 years, 10-year term. The statute allows for 20 years, so where a property owner is looking for 15 years, we partner with community banks, credit unions to actually finance those projects directly. And if it's a 20-year term that they're looking for, then we work with a national PACE lender. But in every situation, it is 2 payments twice a year to the county. I already talked about the advantages of solar. And multi-tenant buildings is another market, because for the property owner who doesn't pay the utilities, it's a hard investment to decrease the energy consumption because the tenants are paying the bill. But since this is on the property tax statement, it can be passed through to the tenants in a triple net lease. So it's not this negative cash flow to the property owner, and it's still positive cash flow to the tenants. Some of the projects. This is New Tech in Austin. So bioscience, it's in conjunction with University of Minnesota investing a lot of money down there in life science. And so this is a research and development facility in Austin. Hotel Indigo in Minneapolis, this was the rehab of the old North Star Hotel. And so I was in pretty tough shape. It's going through this rehab right now. The Rune project in Alexandria is a fabulous project. It sits on a site that had 3 gas stations. You can imagine the pollution. City, county cleaned that up. This is going to be a mixed-use housing and going to have a large restaurant in it and then retail in the main level. A fabulous asset to Alexandria. This one's very close. AVA, Advanced Volumetrics, up in Albertville. This is a new construction, and they make super insulated panels for construction. The Vortex Cold Storage in Albert Lee. Primary tenant of that and the primary owner is Johnny Pop's Popsicles. And then they use about 1/3 of that facility, and there's huge demand for that kind of cold storage. This is where my office is located. So this was the old Macy's Dayton's department store. Had virtually no windows in it. And that far part of the building there, that's where the Wilds practice rink is. But this one, the PACE loan came in at about $7 million, so about 10% of the capital stack. And it was a key component. We also had some tax increment financing for about $8 million as well. But PACE came in and really helped the project come to fruition. Okay. Here's an example of just a god-awful ugly building. It was really bad in Albert Lee, and this is what it's going to look like. So it's a housing. It was I think its last life was a grocery store that had shut down many years ago, and now it's going to have this fabulous look to it and really help Albert Lee look a lot better. Gateway Hotel, this is the largest project we've accomplished so far. This is $20 million, new construction in downtown Minneapolis. You talked about a housing project in Big Lake, and I think it was Big Lake. I'd be surprised if we're not involved in it. We've accomplished probably 36 senior housing projects throughout the state. Closest one might be Hutchinson, Ramsey. We've got at least 3 in Anoka County that we've accomplished. Hutchinson, we accomplished one there. And I'd be surprised if we're not involved in, if it's senior living, be surprised if we won't be involved in it. The majority of senior projects, new construction, we are getting involved in. And that is one of the, this is out in Portland, so we won't talk about it. I think was there because it is a net zero building. Anyhow, PACE Loan Group, that was who I was presenting with. All right, so that is PACE, and I'm certainly open to questions. And really do hope that we can, some of those examples that I showed, I'm sure that those are there are similar projects happening in Sherburne County, and like to be involved in them.
There are a few in the Becker Industrial Park that have taken advantage of this program.
Yeah, Becker we have, but I guess we'll see in the coming months here whether the Big Lake Senior Project is going to use PACE, but I would bet that they will be.
All right, well, any questions for Pete?
How do you get most of your leads? Is it usually something driven by you, or is it manufacturing or the companies?
No, there's, screw up, but there, in XL service territory, XL has a series of account reps whose job is to reduce the energy consumption of businesses. Every utility in the state has that obligation, and XL is successful at it. And so the XL reps, they go to a business, recommend projects, and the building owner will say, well, how do I pay for this? And they will recommend that. So that's one source. Another source is contractors that have come used to it, particularly in the solar industry. Most of the solar installers have become used to recommending PACE. But other contractors, HVAC contractors and general contractors are using it. I certainly make many presentations throughout the state, but also local economic development groups send me quite a few projects. So those are probably the majority of where I'm getting projects. Also, these national PACE lenders are hitting the streets pretty hard. And so I would say, like Advanced Volumetrics and Vortex and those projects, Gateway, really came to me from these national PACE lenders.
Are our local banks aware of the program, Andy? Have you heard of this? That's something we could probably help market for you to local banks as well in the area.
So on the local banks, we definitely, well, we don't see our funds, our revolving loan fund, being in a project for more than a year. We want to get the project funded, and then at the end of the year, work with the county to place the assessment. And once the assessment's placed, then the private sector would like to own those loans. And so we have sold off hundreds of these loans to the private sector and would like to work with any local bank or credit union to actually be the ultimate funder of these.
All right, any other questions for Pete? Thanks, Pete. Thank you.
Thank you for having me up.
All right, well, is there any other items that anybody needs to bring up before we call to adjourn?
Can I bring up our meeting schedule? We're meeting every month. We haven't had a lot of action items this year. Do we want to continue to meet on a monthly basis to get educational opportunities like this? Or is there any preference to maybe go to every other month? Ken and I are going to be talking about it after the meeting today, and I just wondered if there was any feedback from the group. I know you're all you have your businesses, and this is taking an hour and a half of travel out of your day. So is there value to this, or would you like to go to an every other month type of schedule?
My only other thought would be is if we don't have any action items, we offer back online option just to save travel and whatever.
The problem with that is you have to post all your locations where you're at because it is a public meeting. So we've thought about that, but it does present challenges. You'd have to put each individual location that you're at as part of the public notice, which can be done. It's just
a thought.
Yeah.
I indicate that I'd be okay with every other month. I'm actually of the age that you could probably have the same program every other month. It would work for me.
Well, I think it's going every other month as long as we still have the capabilities to call a special meeting if we need to take action. I mean, that's the important piece, but we have that, so. It's
I think that would be
beneficial to
great.
everyone.
Okay.
It's a long drive. I'm on the other end of Sherburne
understood.
County.
And we hit every stoplight some
We do
days.
hit every stoplight on that, yeah.
And Sherburne County is fast. People don't realize.
Okay, I appreciate that feedback. So we may not have a September meeting, Ken and I will talk, but we'll keep you posted.
All right, anything else? Well, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor? Thanks, everybody.